Starting a new job always gives you plenty to think about. There are new responsibilities and procedures, meeting new coworkers, getting familiar with the facility itself. But there's something else you need to keep in mind as well, something very important. Workplace safety. Workplace safety means thinking safety first your first day on the job and every day thereafter. Let's look at some of the hazards you may encounter and what you can do to help yourself and your coworkers avoid them. A lot of the accidents that occur each day begin with slips, trips, and falls. You don't have to work up high or fall a long way to injure yourself. Simply falling to the floor because you've slipped or tripped can be plenty serious. Slips are caused by a lack of friction between the soles of your shoes and the surface that you're walking on. So they often occur on surfaces that are smooth, slick, or wet. The most slippery locations in many workplaces tend to be the floors near entrances, restrooms, and machinery. Rainwater, grease, and oil often make them even slipperier, so you need to be especially careful in these areas. But just about anything that gets between the soles of your shoes and a walking surface can cause you to slip. Floors cluttered with trash or that have dirt, sawdust, metal shavings, gravel, or other loose materials scattered on them can be very dangerous. The shoes that you wear can make a difference too. Casual dress shoes that are practical in an office may not have enough traction to walk safely on a shop floor or loading dock. In these situations, footwear with non-slip soles is always a good choice. Trips often occur when your foot catches on an object that unexpectedly appears in your path. So it's easy to see how a cluttered workplace can be a hazardous one. That's why good housekeeping is so important. Many slips, trips, and falls can be prevented just by cleaning up and disposing of trash and removing obstacles. Use absorbent substances like vermiculite or kitty litter to soak up liquid spills, grease, and oil, then sweep it up and throw it out. Keep aisles, stairs, and doorways clear. Look for floor markings that indicate walkways, and keep these areas clear of obstructions as well. Good housekeeping also includes not creating any hazardous conditions yourself. Stringing power or extension cords across a walkway can create serious trip hazards for people passing through. So always tape these cords down securely. Loose floorboards, torn carpets, protruding nails, and small potholes in the floor create their own hazards. Cordon these areas off until they can be repaired. Even a burnt-out light bulb or malfunctioning light fixture needs your attention. You can't avoid hazards if you can't see them. But replacing a bulb in an overhead fixture can be hazardous itself. You'll naturally want to use a portable ladder to reach it, but you need to remember that using any ladder incorrectly can lead to a serious fall. So begin by inspecting the ladder for damage or parts that don't work. If you find problems, don't use it. Take it out of service and get another one. When setting up a ladder, place the leg securely on a level surface. To get the most stable angle for leaning a ladder against a wall, make sure the base of the ladder is about 1 foot away from the wall for every 4 feet of working ladder height. To climb most securely, face the ladder. Keep 2 hands and a foot or 1 hand and 2 feet in contact with the ladder at all times, and never rush. To avoid losing your balance and falling sideways, keep your belt buckle centered between the ladder rails. When you're finished, don't try to slide down or jump off the ladder. That's just asking for trouble. Climb down carefully using the 3-point rule instead. Every workday, you perform a number of different tasks. You might even do each of them at different locations or use different materials or tools, which means that each task can place a different combination of stresses and strains on your body. Ergonomics is the study of reducing these stresses by adjusting your workplace and work habits to fit your own unique physical makeup. This is very important because bad ergonomics does more than just make you uncomfortable. Over time, these stresses and strains can cause serious damage. There are 3 types of activities that are most likely to cause trouble: performing the same motion over and over without rest, repetitions, working in irregular and extreme positions, and lifting loads that are too heavy for you to lift alone, or lifting a load improperly. One way to avoid hazardous repetitions is to work more variety into your movements by alternating tasks that use different motions. You can also reduce the stress on your joints and muscles by making a few changes in your work area to avoid those awkward reaches you otherwise would have to make. Adjust chairs to provide firm support for your lower back. Raise or lower work surfaces to take stress off your upper body. And arrange the tools and materials you use so you don't have to stretch or strain to get them. You can avoid one of the most common symptoms of bad ergonomics, an aching back, by using safe lifting and carrying techniques. First, examine the object you want to lift. If it's too heavy or hard to handle, get a coworker to help you, or use a dolly, handcart, or other equipment. If you can handle the lift by yourself, get close to the object and bend slowly at the knees. Don't bend at the waist. Get a good grip and lift slowly with your legs. And remember to keep your back straight and the load close to your body. To carry something safely, remember not to twist your back when you're turning. Turn gradually with your feet instead. When it's time to set the object down, simply reverse the lifting process. Hand and power tools and machinery make it possible for us to work better and easier. But they also cause thousands of serious injuries and hundreds of deaths every year. Fortunately, you can avoid their hazards by following safe work practices. Inspect your tools every time you use them. Look for cracked or bent pieces, loose or missing parts, and rust or corrosion. Always use the correct tools for the job. Don't try and cut corners by using a screwdriver as a chisel, a wrench as a hammer, or a knife as a screwdriver. Be sure you know how to operate your power tools correctly. Follow the manufacturer's instructions and ask your supervisor if you have questions. Check that a tool's housing is not cracked before you plug it in. Verify that switches are not loose or damaged. Carefully inspect power cords and pressure hoses to make sure that they aren't cracked, cut, or frayed. Some tools may not be safe to use in certain work environments because water conducts electricity. Using electrically powered tools in wet conditions like rain or while standing in water can create a serious shock hazard. Since both metallic hand tools and electrical power tools can produce sparks, they could start a fire if they're used around flammable or combustible materials. And whatever types of tools you're using, be sure you wear appropriate personal protective equipment, PPE. Industrial machinery can also be dangerous if it isn't set up and used correctly. Fortunately, many pieces of equipment come with guards and other safety devices that reduce your exposure to their hazards. These can include fixed, adjustable, and self-adjusting guards, light curtains, and pressure-sensitive trips and mats. But none of them will protect you if they've been damaged, altered, or removed. So only use a machine when its safeguards are in place and in good operating condition. And be sure to wear PPE to shield yourself from any sparks or flying material that might get past the guards. Keeping your work area clean and free of tools, materials, and debris when you're working around machinery is essential for safety as well. Any of these could fall into your machine, hit moving parts, and become dangerous projectiles. Pay attention to how you dress for work too. Loose clothing, long hair, and jewelry can slip past a guard and get wrapped up in moving parts. It takes proper training to operate powered equipment safely, so if you haven't been trained and authorized on a machine, don't use it. Don't use a machine if you are sick, tired, or having trouble concentrating either. Your full attention is required to avoid accidents. And maintain a healthy respect for the equipment you work with. Many serious accidents happen to experienced workers because they become complacent, forget their good work habits, and try to get away with dangerous shortcuts. Forklifts play a big part in many work environments, and you have to be trained and certified to operate one. But even experienced drivers can benefit from a periodic refresher of the basic safe work practices that should be followed when operating a forklift. They start with entering the vehicle properly using a 3-point mount. Keep at least 2 hands and 1 foot, or 2 feet and 1 hand in contact with the truck at all times. Before you drive off, adjust your seatbelt and buckle up. Once you're moving, keep your hands inside the vehicle. Maintain a safe speed. Watch where you're going and look out for pedestrians. Drive to the right of oncoming traffic and pedestrians just as you would in a car. Don't tailgate. Stay at least 3 truck lengths behind other vehicles. When approaching corners or doorways, stop and sound your horn. This lets pedestrians and other equipment operators know that you're coming. Look both ways before you pull out. Remember to keep your forks low, 4 to 6 inches above the floor. Moving with raised forks can damage equipment and injure coworkers. When you're carrying a load, don't make sudden stops. That could dump it right off the forks. If a load blocks your forward vision, drive in reverse. Ask a coworker to help you as a spotter if necessary. Be careful crossing wet and icy surfaces. Stopping or turning suddenly could cause you to skid out of control. Remember, any load will change a forklift's center of gravity. The best way to keep a lift stable is to tilt the mast back and keep the forks low. But if your forklift does begin to tip, do not jump out. You could be crushed under the machine. Instead, brace your feet. Pull yourself tight up against the steering wheel. Lean in the opposite direction from the way the lift is tipping and hang on. Never allow riders on a forklift unless it's specifically designed for transporting passengers. And don't fool around. The driver's seat of a forklift or any other equipment is no place for a joker or show-off. It takes a lot of power to make a workplace work. But regardless of what types of power the equipment and machinery in your facility run on, it's crucial for you to recognize that the energy itself can be dangerous. Energy safety is everyone's responsibility, particularly when that energy is electricity, because so many of us use it so often and it can be so dangerous. To work safely around electricity, you need to look for hazardous conditions. Inspect all power and extension cords before you plug them in. Cracked insulation and exposed wires are 2 common hazards. If you find problems, do not use the equipment. Report it, repair it, or replace it right away. Electrical equipment is never safe unless it has been properly grounded. If you see an adapter being used to insert a 3-prong plug into a 2-prong outlet without the ground wire being connected, that's a shock hazard. The same with 3-pronged plugs that have had their ground prongs removed so they'll fit into a 2-pronged outlet. Plugging too many power cords into a single receptacle creates another type of hazard. This can overload the circuit, cause the wiring to heat up, and possibly start a fire. To avoid an overload, power cords should be distributed evenly among receptacles that are on different circuits. You can use extension cords to help with this, but be sure to choose cords that can handle the amount of electricity that's required and tape them down so they don't trip anyone. Then talk to your supervisor about finding a permanent way to make the power available where it's needed, because extension cords are only a temporary solution. Moisture can be a problem as well. Never plug in wet cords or touch wet electrical equipment. And don't touch electrical equipment with wet hands either. These are all serious shock hazards because water conducts electricity. Finally, never use a metal ladder near electricity. It can act just like a lightning rod. Use a fiberglass or wooden ladder instead. Many incidents occur when one person is working on a piece of equipment that has had its power turned off, and someone else inadvertently turns the power back on. The result can be a severe injury, even death. But a safe work practice known as lockout-tagout can prevent these accidents. Its goal is to ensure that power can't be restored to equipment while it's being worked on. The lockout step disconnects a machine from its source of energy. Actual locks and other devices are installed that physically prevent the energy from being turned back on. In the tagout steps, tags are also attached to call attention to the fact that the power is shut off. They explain why the equipment has been de-energized and list the personnel who are involved with the work. For added safety, only certain employees in your facility will be authorized to install or remove lockout-tagout devices. If you encounter equipment that has been locked out and tagged out, do not attempt to remove the locks or tags, and do not try to turn the power back on. You may have heard of OSHA's Hazard Communication Standard. Sometimes it's simply called HAZCOM. But you might not know that it gives you the right to know about any hazardous materials you may be called on to handle as part of your work. It also requires your employer to provide you with the training and equipment that you need to work safely with these substances. Information about potentially hazardous chemicals is provided for you in 3 ways: on safety data sheets, on container labels, and in your facility's written hazard communication program. A Materials Safety Data Sheet, SDS, explains how to safely handle and store that chemical, and what exposure controls and personal protective equipment you should use when you're working with it. The SDS also tells you how to clean up a spill involving the chemical, and what first aid procedures to follow in an emergency. You can find all of this quickly and easily because the SDS presents information in the order you typically need it and in language that's easy to understand. The labels on chemical containers are required to provide you with important information about the substances inside them as well at a glance. They display the material's name and potential health, fire, and reactivity hazards, along with what precautions to take, what situations to avoid, and what personal protective equipment to wear when you're working with it. You can also find information about hazardous chemicals in your facility's Hazard Communication Program. It tells you what hazardous materials are present in your workplace, where they are, and how they're labeled, where their SDSs are kept, and anything else you need to know to work with the chemical safely. As we've seen, the safe handling of hazardous materials always requires the use of proper personal protective equipment. PPE is anything you wear to prevent or minimize injuries. But it's not just for use around chemicals. It can help you to protect yourself from many different types of hazards throughout your workplace. For example, where there's danger from overhead hazards, such as low beams, pipes, or raceways, you should wear a hard hat. It can protect you from falling objects, chemical splashes, molten metal, and other hazards as well. To protect your eyes from flying particles, you should wear safety glasses. Goggles can provide good protection against splashes. Optical filter lenses can prevent injuries from intense light sources. You can use a face shield with any of this equipment for more coverage if you need it. In noisy environments, earplugs, earmuffs, and canal caps can reduce the risk of hearing damage. Gloves can protect your hands from hazards that range from dirt, splinters, rough surfaces, and sharp edges, to heat, chemicals, potentially infectious body substances, and more. Safety shoes can have non-slip soles, steel toes, protective inserts, and insulation. They help to prevent slips and resist crushing and punctures, as well as protect against extremes of both heat and cold. Some hard hats, gloves, and safety shoes can also resist electric shock. For hazards in the atmosphere, you need to wear respiratory protection. Depending on the amount of protection you require, this can range from disposable dust masks to full-face cartridge respirators, or even supplied air systems that provide breathable air from tanks. But no PPE can protect you if you leave it sitting on the shelf, so be sure to wear yours every day. Industrial fires can spread quickly. They can cause serious damage, and they can kill. The best way to fight any fire is to prevent it from starting in the first place. You can do this by following safe work practices. Since many industrial fires are caused by stray sparks from welding and cutting operations, flammable materials should always be stored away from where this type of work is going on. Fireproof blankets should be placed over flammables that can't be moved. You can also arrange welding screens or curtains around the work area to prevent sparks and hot metal fragments from scattering. Even with these precautions, a stray spark or piece of hot metal might still escape. So it's often wise to post a coworker with a fire extinguisher to keep a fire watch just in case. Overloaded electrical circuits can cause fires too. So don't plug too many power cords into any one outlet, and make sure extension cords are rated to handle the voltage they are drawing. Fires can also start when wood shavings, grease, or other flammable materials build up on parts of a machine that get hot. You can prevent this by keeping equipment clean, especially around electrical elements like motors or areas where friction creates a lot of heat. If you ever see equipment overheating or notice frayed or loose wiring, shut off the power and notify your supervisor. But fire prevention doesn't stop at the edge of the shop floor. It continues into office areas and even break rooms. Watch out for overloaded outlets and extension cords there as well. Don't leave toaster ovens and other appliances unattended when you're heating up something to eat either. If you smoke, light up only in designated areas and never around flammable materials. Be careful where and how you dispose of your cigarette butts too. Make sure they are completely out before you toss them, and then only into appropriate containers, such as specially designed receptacles or metal pails filled with sand. If a fire emergency does occur in your facility, your safety and possibly even your life will depend on knowing just what to do. Your company will have developed an emergency action plan that contains all the information you need, including evacuation routes and procedures. This plan is the key to maintaining emergency readiness at your facility, and it's not just about fires either. It addresses many different types of potential incidents, including hazardous spills, natural disasters such as floods, earthquakes, and hurricanes, even civil unrest and terrorist attacks. The Emergency Action Plan is made available to everyone in your facility, so you can use it to prepare yourself to act quickly and safely when an emergency does arise. For starters, you should identify at least 2 escape routes from your work areas. That way, if one is blocked, you have another way out. Evacuation routes and emergency exits should never be cluttered or obstructed by tools, materials, or equipment. If you see something blocking the way, move it or report it immediately. When an alarm sounds, leave the area immediately. Remain calm, walk, don't run. Never use an elevator to leave a building during an emergency. Use the stairs instead. Feel doors before you open them to make sure they are cool to the touch. Never open a door that's hot. It could have flames and smoke behind it. Close doors as you go through them. If there's a fire, this helps to keep smoke and flames from spreading. As you evacuate, stay close to the floor. Since heat rises, this will help you breathe cleaner, cooler air. Your facility's emergency action plan will also list the location you should report to once you get outside. This way, your company can keep track of who's safe and who may still need help. And emergency personnel can be notified immediately if anyone is missing. No safety program is perfect. Even when we do our best, accidents can still happen and people can get hurt. So you need to be ready to deal with these situations when they occur. Often, the best course in responding to a health emergency is to call for medical assistance. So you need to know what numbers to call and where to find them quickly. Often, every minute counts, so you should call for assistance immediately if the victim is unconscious, there are injuries to the head, neck, or back, there is a visible bone deformity, the victim cannot move or put weight on an injured joint or limb, there is significant swelling, pain, or numbness, or there is an obvious break in a bone or a severe muscle strain. If a coworker suffers a heart attack, their very survival may depend on getting them treatment quickly. A heart attack victim may suddenly have trouble breathing, feel a tightening in the chest, and experience nausea or indigestion. Their skin may turn pale or blue and go cold and sweaty. This is another situation where you should call for medical help immediately. Heat stroke is also a condition that requires fast action. This is an extreme form of heat stress in which the body becomes severely overheated. It can lead to brain damage and even death. A heat stroke victim can have a temperature as high as 105 degrees Fahrenheit, but they are unable to sweat normally. Other symptoms can include headache, dizziness, nausea, and cramps. They may even lose consciousness. If you think one of your coworkers is suffering from heat stroke, call emergency medical services immediately. Then, get them out of the heat. Raise their feet so their blood can circulate more easily and cool them better. And stay with them until help arrives. To avoid any heat-related illnesses, when you're in a hot environment, you should drink from 5 to 7 ounces of an electrolyte sports drink every 15 or 20 minutes. This will help replace the fluids and minerals that your body is sweating out. Loose, lightweight clothing made of cotton or cotton blends can also help to keep you cool. Avoid dark colors that absorb heat. Instead, wear light colors that will reflect it. If you're working outside, wear a light-colored hat to keep the sun off your head. Sunglasses and sunscreen can help too. Cold conditions can be just as hazardous as hot ones. In these situations, you should dress to stay warm. Layer your clothing to trap body heat and keep out the cold. Protect yourself from rain and snow with a waterproof outer shell. And wear a hat and gloves or mittens, as well as waterproof insulated boots to keep your extremities warm. But keep in mind that working in heavy clothing can tire you out quickly, and you can work up just as big a sweat in the cold as you do when it's hot. You can stay safe by replacing lost fluids and minerals with electrolyte drinks as you work. It's important to be able to perform some basic first aid when you're on the job as well. You can prepare yourself to treat any minor cuts, scrapes, and burns by learning where the nearest first aid kit is. If you cut or scrape yourself, or you need to treat a coworker, stop the bleeding with direct pressure. Clean the wound with soap and water. Give the area adequate time to dry, then apply a sterile bandage. In case of a burn, soak the area in cool water or apply ice. Then cover the burn with a sterile dressing. Don't try to clean the affected skin and don't break any blisters. And never apply ointments or salves unless a medical professional tells you to. In any incident, bleeding can be a serious concern. If you come into contact with someone else's blood, any disease-causing microorganisms in that blood could infect you too. Some of these organisms, called blood-borne pathogens, can give rise to hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and the human immunodeficiency virus HIV. So you must do what you can to prevent getting other people's blood on your skin or mucous membranes or in your eyes, even during an emergency situation. If possible, before assisting an injured coworker, put on a pair of latex gloves from a first aid kit or any clean work gloves you can find. Afterward, thoroughly wash your hands and any part of your body that may have come into contact with blood. Then report the exposure to your supervisor. But remember, first aid is always and only the first step. You then need to take the next one by getting help from a medical professional. There's obviously a lot to think about when it comes to keeping you and your coworkers safe. Let's review. The best way to deal with accidents is to prevent them. Even when you know your job backwards and forwards, don't become complacent. Think safety all the time, every day. Always follow safe work practices. Wear the right PPE for the job that you're doing. Keep your eyes peeled for hazards. When you see them, report, repair, or remove them. Know what to do in an emergency. Prepare yourself to act quickly when seconds count. Learn the signs of health problems, such as heat stroke or a heart attack, and know what to do if a coworker is injured. Workplace safety is a team effort. Working together, we can keep accidents and injuries to a minimum and ensure that everyone gets to go home safe at the end of the day.